Hello everyone. This is going to be video 3 in the series of police corruption. And I'm out here at the little tiny park down the road. And it's got this monument for all of the military veterans, fire, rescue, law enforcement, paramedics, past, present, and future. It was dedicated November 11th, 2001. And of course, somebody would start messaging me. Today, I want to talk more about the police corruption. And I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty long series because I've come up with a few other aspects of it. But this morning I was talking to Priest Logan on Discover Satanism, and he is not only a priest there, he's also somebody that I consider a friend, somebody that I consider to be a mentor, and somebody that, I can openly have any conversation with, and is not going to, judge the situation. So I was speaking with him, and hopefully I can get with him later on, because I want to do a video with the statistics of religion involved in police corruption or governmental corruption in general. So hopefully that'll be something that I can do in a week or so. It's all about his time. He's done a lot to help me, so I don't try to push him on getting me any information or anything. It's always just a simple conversation that leads to information. But today there's just this little bit of information that I wanted to go over before I do the prosecution side of corruption, which will be the next video that I upload right after this one. Police corruption occurs when individuals use their power to gain money or other personal benefits. One of the worst police scandals happened in Los Angeles in 1999. CRASH was an elite anti-gang unit and stands for Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. And it became the focus of an investigation that found 70 officers in the unit was involved in drug sales, the theft of money from drug dealers, assaults, fabricated reports, and fabricated arrests. During this time, dozens of criminal convictions were overturned, and many of the officers were convicted. The city paid over $40 million to settle civil lawsuits. Police corruption hurts both law enforcement and the community. Scandals such as CRASH damage the police image and undermine the community's trust of law enforcement. Crime flourishes in these communities because criminal activity is protected rather than abated. As a result, the protected criminal activity often contribute to organized crime rings. This is because the protected activities, like drug dealing or prostitution, quickly become sources of income for the involved. There are many types of corruption, but bribery and extortion are high up on the list. Bribery is giving or receiving any item of value in order to influence an officer. For example, an officer might accept money in exchange for not arresting a suspect. Extortion is similar to bribery, but is more forceful, threatening someone in order to obtain money or property. An officer threatening to have someone arrested if they don't pay the officer is an example of this. Bribery is usually money. Extortion is threats. Blue Wall is a huge cause of corruption being swept under the rug. Blue Wall is a code of silence among police officers that discourage other officers from reporting the misconduct that goes on around them. Due to the culture of many police departments, officers are often willing to tolerate corruption and the behavior associated to it so that they won't be labeled as a rat. Studies also show that most corruption stems from just a few dishonest or unethical officers, but it brands the whole department as corrupt. This is called the rotten apple theory. And I'm pretty sure we have all heard about that theory in one way or another. And the study that was done that shows that it is just a few that makes the department look bad is what I was saying in another video about it. Not all the officers are bad. Not all of them do have part of the actual corruption or abuse of power. But the silence is a main key. Officers need to learn to speak up. It's not being a rat, it's just doing their job. They like to go out and arrest everybody, or literally everything. And then they sit in their office and they know all the stuff is going on, but they're not saying anything. So the problem of police corruption starts within the office. It starts with silence in the department. We, as a community, need to encourage our officers to speak up when they see something. They don't have to tell us what they see. There's internal affairs and everything else that can go get them. You know, they can just go get them. They can put a stop to it. But the way the communities are these days, we always expect the worst of our police. And I'm guilty of this. I have had many, countless times that I have been in a police station when I was there translating. Now, my record is clear. I've never been arrested, so I don't know what it's like to be on the other side of police corruption. But I do know what it's like to go in and have to translate and hear how this officer did this or this officer did that, and how it violates the person's civil rights. You know, it takes away their humanity. And being in a court or at a jail during a booking session or any time that I've been needed to translate, you know, I'm not in a place to where I can be like, okay, we need to discuss this topic because you're doing this all wrong. My goal is always, you know, making sure that the person that I'm translating for, whether I know that person or not, is getting the best treatment that they can get during that process. And I also know if I speak up and I say something at that moment, it's just going to make it harder for the person that is in jail. One time, this one Mexican lady was arrested for no license. And around here, if you don't have a license, they usually just impound the car, give you a ticket, and tell you to call somebody to come and get you. And that has been case after case after case. That's their procedure here. If they're a minor, they don't really impound the car or anything. They just call a parent to bring somebody to drive the car home. Which is good, you know, it's a little bit of leniency for the teens, but still, this one particular lady, no drinking, no drugs, she had insurance, she had tag, she worked in a restaurant that the whole police force would go to. Like, they would gather up there every single day for lunch. And they did this for 3 or 4 years, and she had been there for like 5, 6 years. But they arrested her for no license. So I go in, and even though she spoke English, she still requested a translator because she knew that with her status of being here at that time, before the kids in the cages, that it may end up being a different issue, and she would have to understand fully what she was signing and stuff. So I get up there, and they tell me that they arrested her for no license, and I ask them, okay, so where's the drugs, where's the alcohol, where's the no insurance charges, no seatbelt charges, was she speeding, you know, like, what was going on? Oh, no, we just randomly stopped her, and she didn't have any license, so we arrested her. Well, I had brought up a few cases that I had had prior to that day about where I had just, you know, been asked to go in and pay the fine, or go with the person to pay the fine, that was arrested on similar charges. But they were Americans. They were American citizens that had no license. And the majority of them needed me to give them a ride up there because they had no license. And at the time, this is what I was just doing to help out the community. So I would pick them up, and I would take them up there, and they would pay their fine, and they'd go on about it. I brung this up to the officer, and later that night, that woman got assaulted. She got assaulted by an officer. And of course, no officer saw anything. The inmates that was around her tried to tell their stories of what had happened to her, but nothing ever come of it. Nothing. No news report, nothing. And at that time, I didn't have this channel. But I went around and I was talking about it and stuff. And I brought awareness to it, and about 6 months later, the officer that had assaulted her ended up just, you know, being released from the force here. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he moved to Texas and is still an officer. But my point of it is, when we see something, we need to speak up about it, because had I not let that go, the rest of my police force at the time, that we know for a fact was corrupt, you know, they wouldn't have gotten away with it. They may have continued to do what they're doing in another law enforcement office, but they wouldn't have gotten away with it here. And the officers that started coming in to replace them, they were pretty decent people, but they still have their blue wall. To this day, we still have a blue wall here. And our officers know that if they're going to do something, they can literally have one of their co-workers patrol the area to make sure that people don't get down to where they are doing whatever they are doing. And I can imagine that this is a lot worse in the bigger cities. So the blue wall needs to come down. That blue wall needs to crash. And the police forces need to start realizing that ratting out their fellow officers is not actually ratting them out. It is the first key to stop the police corruption, because they see what we don't, even though we see a hell of a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna upload the video on prosecution issues and corruption and stuff like that right after this one. So we'll see how that one turns out. Have a good day.